Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, the podcast where we bring you inside the world of joint ventures, strategic partnerships, and powerful collaborations. Whether you're looking to expand your network, find new referral partners, or scale your business, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Welcome back to Partnership for Profits. We got a super cool guest today. I'm your host, Will Brooks. We've got a great guest who was also my co-star in Life on Bourbon. I think he made his debut in the show that we recorded a couple of months ago. We've got Brandon Abidin here, who is the founder of IM.Loans, one of the most forward-thinking mortgage companies in the country, and a whole bunch of other stuff going on too. Brandon, how are you doing, man? Thanks for coming on and joining me on the podcast today.
Yeah, no, man, I appreciate the invite. It's fun to be on the other end of the microphone now. I do my own podcast, and so.
Oh yeah.
It's always an honor when people invite you to be on their podcast. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's nice to not have to be the one coming with all the questions, right? You just get to answer.
It's like I don't have to do any of the work today.
Right on. Well, I've got some work for you. I got some questions that I need you to answer for me. So Brandon, tell us and tell me and tell our viewers and our listeners a little bit about Is it IM.Loans or just IM?
Yeah, so the IM is short for Intelligent Mortgage. I got tired. I had these long emails that where people would misspell them. And so I wanted something to kind of just simplify and kind of dummy proof it to where there were no typos. And so IM.Loans was the new website that we purchased a few years ago to just streamline it and kind of shorten it down a little bit. But the company is Intelligent Mortgage, and then IM.Loans is our website, our email address, and everything.
So tell me behind the name. What's an intelligent mortgage? What's the difference between an intelligent mortgage and a regular mortgage or a dumb mortgage?
I mean, if you have been in mortgage and real estate for any length of time, unfortunately, the barrier of entry is too low in many cases. I mean, there's thousands of realtors in every city, hundreds of mortgage brokers. And so I was always getting the calls to fix problems, I would say like the ambulance ride to the ER to fix the loan, because I've got one prime example right now. I've got a lady in an Airbnb, non-ethical mortgage broker who I've had 4 transactions hit my desk in the last year and a half from the same mortgage broker that have all been emergency surgery situations where it's like, save this deal or these people are homeless. These people built a home, had 9 months of planning, and this mortgage broker was doing some unethical things, bordering on the line of fraud. We had to clean up a lot of their mistakes. And this poor family's spending $150, $200 a night. LSU's got a home game this weekend, so their hotel room, she's like, "Are we closing Friday, please?" Because the deal is costing her a fortune in hotel room stays. And I got that deal like 2 weeks ago, and we're going to pull a miracle, get this thing closed, and get these people in a house. So, Intelligent Mortgage I used to joke that common sense had left the lending industry. And after the subprime collapse, things went way too far under government rule, and there was way too many hoops to jump through. So we tried to take a more intelligent approach to getting loans done and taking a lot of that off the client's plate. And by being the smartest person in the region for understanding guidelines, how to get loans done, I preach to my loan officers, you want to be a good loan officer, you need to know the guidelines better than an underwriter. You need to be smarter than the underwriters, because a lot of times, 25% of the deals I get done, I have to sometimes go over an underwriter's head and show them, no, there is a way you can do that. No, this can work. And so that's where that thought process, and then plus I was like 20 something years old and I thought it was a kind of cool name.
Yeah, it's a very cool name. Yeah, it is. It sounds like what you guys are doing is you're fixing the problems before they start.
100%.
That's a great way to do business. 100%. You anticipate what the problems are and keep them from happening in the first place. That's great. So you've been doing in the mortgage area in the mortgage field for how long? 23 years? Is that what I read?
24 now. Probably need to update the website because we're in another year. I got in at 21 years old in 2001, like right out of college, and it was my first real career job, from bartending to mortgage broker. It was a quick transition out of school, and I've never looked back.
And you became like top manager in your company that you were at when you at 21, like right when you came in.
Yeah.
That's what I read. So what's the mindset that made you outperform people that are twice your age when you're 21 years old? Like starting out and jumping up that quickly. What's the secret?
Well, like success leaves clues, what one of my coaches used to tell me, but there's really no secrets. It was late nights, hard work, a lot of calls, but really just becoming a student of the game. Like I loved what I did. I was 21. I was a poor kid growing up. I can remember my mom on food stamps when we were growing up, literally, like the old Monopoly money food stamps, not the fancy debit now that no one knows you're on. And so that motivated me right out of college because I didn't want to follow in their footsteps. And I saw the money that could be made in that industry. So at 21, you put it in front of me that I could make 10 grand a month, 15 grand a month. And then I'm, super competitive. My wife, everyone in our family comes from an athletic background of some sort or another. All of us were state champions in something, whether it was football, bodybuilding. My wife was 100-meter hurdles champion. Everyone, like our kids are all like, so we have this like ingrained competitive nature. So if there's a sales board, I want to be at the top. If there's a competition, I want to beat everybody in that competition. So I always had that competitive drive, and I wanted to get promoted too. I saw what the managers there were making, and I quickly wanted to be one. And so to become the youngest manager there, it took a lot because I was an immature 21-year-old kid. So it really took a lot of convincing, like, why are we going to promote this kid?
So you had to prove it to him. And you started at 21. So you got up to that manager position like super fast.
22 years old. Yeah.
Within a year of you being there, you were in that manager.
Yeah. A year of basically being the most consistent. I wasn't always number one in the company, but my numbers were consistently, top 3 every month. I didn't have the peaks and valleys like most sales reps would. So when you took my average over that year, like batting average, like I was like a 300 hitter, I might not hit as many home runs as Barry Bonds, but I had a better batting average. Kind of thing. So,
consistently.
That was the thing for me is I tried to be super consistent, and then I tried to learn everything, and I loved helping people. So I was always answering questions and showing people how to do stuff. And I really use that as kind of my basis to push them to say, hey, I'm already helping everybody. Make me a manager. And that I just kind of stayed in their face, and the squeaky wheel gets the grease until they finally said, okay, we're gonna give this loudmouth kid a chance.
And now 24 years later, you got your own shop. So
yes, sir.
So the title of this episode is about your $1 billion mindset, billion dollar mortgage mindset. What does that phrase mean to you, and how does it show up in your daily habits?
So I guess, one thing is I'm one of the few people. I remember early on in the business, there was an old gentleman named Greg Frost, and he was the first $1 billion loan officer that had closed $1 billion in mortgage transactions, 20 some years ago. That was a huge, huge deal.
Sure.
And now, like, I've closed a couple of billion in sales transactions. I've overseen my team. At one time, our team was doing a couple $100 million. I personally would do at my best like 132 million in annual sales, which was a huge number. And it was just kind of that like never enough mentality. Like whatever it was, like, okay, we got here, I want more. So it's that competitive drive just kind of always spun me to, well, okay, what can we do to get more efficient? What can we do to make the process smoother? How can we do more transactions? Because sure, we were doing good for a small local brokerage, but then I look at like a real $1 billion company like Rocket Mortgage that does $1 billion a year just in advertising budget.
Mm-hmm.
And you realize like you're still playing small compared to, like the juggernauts in the industry. So I'm still kind of chasing that rabbit, as to, how do I catch the big guys, and what can we do to get better and make that next leap in mortgage and coming up with new strategies to be more competitive. And obviously we beat those guys in rates and product selection, but I would sure love to be doing the volume that some of those huge companies do. So I'm always kind of chasing that white rabbit that you never.
You want to have you want IM.Loans on a stadium someday, like the IM.Loans stadium? Is that what you're looking for?
Honestly, no. The difference, I use that example. I used to use that as my sales pitch when people would like ask me about Rocket. And I'm a wholesaler for Rocket. They fly me up there a couple times a year. And it was funny, the vice president saw one of my videos on TikTok and he goes, dude, I was laughing at your video when you were trashing, all the money that these companies spend. I didn't name anybody, but I'm like, if your company has a NASCAR team, a stadium, a professional football or basketball team, that comes at a cost. And that comes at a cost of higher rates, higher closing costs. And so it's funny, like the vice president of wholesale at Rocket Mortgage saw some of my videos, and he goes, man, use that shit because it's true. He's like, that's why you as a broker can offer a better product than our wholesale channel can offer to the consumer because they do have $1 billion TV budget,
the overhead,
$1 billion internet pay-per-click budget. And the only way to pay for that is higher rates, higher fees. And us as a wholesale broker, I'd rather have 50 offices of Intelligent Mortgage in all 50 states and be the low cost, low price mortgage leader. And to me, like I take pride in that. Like I love beating the competition. I love beating their rate, beating their fees. And I had someone one day, they're like, yeah, man, but do you really want to be the Walmart of mortgages? And I said, have you seen the Walton family's net worth?
Walmart's doing pretty good. Yeah, 100%.
You're damn right. I don't need to be the Mercedes or the Bugatti of mortgages because this ain't a Bugatti.
You can
They're
be
all the same. The freaking loans are all the same. And so if you can get it cheaper through me, no, they don't need to go pay a percent. And like I used to work at some like companies that you got to sell benefit and you don't sell rate and don't. That's a crock of shit. You're selling a bunch of shit because it's a higher price for the exact same thing. Like if you and me are selling Nike shoes and they're real, not knockoff Air Jordans,
right?
Mine are $89 and yours are $189. Why are they going to go buy your Air Jordans?
100%. 100%.
That's kind of my thoughts. So I just thought that was funny when someone said to me, man, but do you really want to be the Walmart? Yeah, I'll be the Walmart.
Yeah, Walmart's doing great. they got
Walmart's doing just fine in my neighborhood.
100%. So you mentioned competition a lot, being competitive a lot. You said you come from an athletic background. What did you play when you were? What was your sport?
So me growing up, I was amateur boxing. I was in boxing when I was a kid, and all I did was train with a lot of pro fighters, MMA fighters after I got out of boxing. And so I literally just got my ass kicked for like a decade. And
so that's awesome. Do you still fight?
No, I do a little bit of jiu-jitsu. I'm 45, man. I'm beat up. I'm old. Like my son's a little champion wrestler and we wrestle around and I we'll put the gloves on. We'll do a little MMA striking work and stuff. But no, like I did that when I was younger, like middle school, high school. I pole vaulted in high school. And then later on, I had a real bad motorcycle accident that destroyed my legs. And I got into bodybuilding when I could walk again.
Okay.
And I had a good run with bodybuilding. I won some state championships in like amateur bodybuilding,
nice.
Powerlifting. I did some powerlifting stuff. So it was always in the bodybuilding and powerlifting. Boxing was more of a hobby. When I was training with all those pro fighters, I realized like there's another level to this. But it was great when I would spar or like train with amateur guys because then they kind of move like in slow motion. But you realize like if you want to be a really elite, like that's your life.
Yeah, 100%.
And so I didn't dedicate enough time to it, but it was a lot of fun. And I still talk to some of those guys and still see like Dustin Poirier was one of the guys that used to train at the MMA gym here in town. And seeing those guys win, on the UFC big screen, it's cool to see like guys used to actually, get in the ring and play around with and get to actually do one-on-one sparring and coaching with and stuff. And they would coach you, seeing those guys on the big screen. It was a fun journey. And so I'm passionate. I love it. I still love staying active. But jujitsu is kind of like the old man, like you can still be competitive, but with two bad knees at 45.
I gotcha. So what I wanted to ask though was, so I love that's your background, and you mentioned other people in your family being involved in athletics and being involved in sports. Where do you think the competitive drive in people comes from? Is that genetic, or because I have it. I was an athlete when I was younger. I played a lot of sports, but I have two older kids from a previous marriage. They're not athletic at all. They don't have that competitive nature. It's not in them, and that's okay to not have it.
Yeah.
But I'm just kind of curious where you think that drive, that mindset, that competitive, because it does pay off entrepreneurially. It pays off if you're in sales big time. Where do you think that comes from?
I do think that there is a portion of that that's somewhere in you, kind of mentally. Just like I can't play an instrument to save my life. Musical talent left the building. My brother's an amazing drummer and musician, but doesn't have an athletic bone in his body, and is the least competitive minded person. Like he's on cruise control. And I joke, I was like, he's got to live to be 150 because his like resting heart rate is probably 30. He's just like slow and chill, and he's just like the most cool, calm. He's 60 years old, and he looks like he's 35, 40 years old. I mean, just he's so I do think that there's a part of that somewhere that we're kind of hardwired at birth.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, I mean, some of us gravitate towards picking up a football or a baseball, or like when you were a kid, like everything was a foot race. Like I know, like I was fast. And so it's like you raced everyone, it was constantly like a foot race or something. And like there was always just that. And then there's some kids who could give a shit less like that. So I do think that some of that is naturally in you. And then part of anything, I think, is your environment. Like our household, my wife, 100-meter hurdles champion, super competitive, great athlete. It's sad when your wife's probably the better athlete of the two of you. And you got she reminds me, when our kids do something, her last name before we got married was Brian. She's like, that's that Brian DNA. And I was like, he's like we'll joke. So we even compete, like little stuff like that, and we pick at each other. But oldest son was a quarterback in high school, went to state championship his junior and senior year, and won it his senior year. And the little man has won jiu-jitsu tournaments from the time he was 6, 7 years old, and now he's in wrestling, and he's kicking butt in wrestling. He's going to go to Catholic High to wrestle. So, that competitive drive just kind of was in all of us. Our daughter was a real good volleyball player, but she's not as like alpha super competitive as we are, so like you said, in the same household, she was a good volleyball player, but not like the crazy competitive, like has to win at everything. Like we laugh. We'll hear my son in the other room playing video games and yelling at the TV, and I'm like, oh, I remember those days.
So when you're looking for employees at IM, is that something you're taking into account? Do you have a way to do you want competitive people? I would feel like you would want people with that competitive drive. How are you, like, do you have a way of kind of figuring out if someone has that competitive streak in them?
Yeah, I like to ask questions about their past, school, extracurricular activities they did growing up, sports they played, any major achievements that they had, sales awards that they've won. Like, do they consider themselves, very competitive? Give me examples of that. Like I definitely like to dive in and first kind of hint around and ask questions that give me, without coming right out and asking it. But I do, like I had a surgeon friend of mine, and they talked about at the hospital, there would be 3 positions, and there was over 300 resumes every year for these 3 or 4 positions. And he asked the president at the hospital, how do we weed these down? And the president said, with no hesitation, he said, the first thing I look at on that stack of resumes is extracurricular activities, because these are all med school graduates, so they're all smart, they're all capable,
well trained. Yeah.
And then sports. He looked at extracurricular and did they compete at a high level in sports in high school and college. That was how he eliminated the first 90%. But like, so most of the interviews were from that top 10% that had really astounding like extracurriculars and sports. And he mentioned, sports was a huge one for him. So, that philosophy, I've seen it firsthand after being in this business over 20 years, like men and women who had a, high school or college, especially like who went on to college or pro level. Like I got some friends that were former pro athletes and they're freaking rock stars in the business world, and it's because that relentless, personality and practice every day and repetitive things that you do over and over again without getting results for that end result that might be 6 months, 6 years down the road. So it definitely is one of the key pillars. It's not a make or break, because there are people that make great employees that aren't uber competitive too,
Right.
But they may fit a different role than just that sales role.
I think it's more, it's the competitive thing is important, but for me, it's more about drive. Like if you're competitive, like you've got to drive. I was going to tell you, if you're looking at resumes for people and you're kind of weeding people out, another thing that you might look at, and I know you were on set with me and Armando and a bunch of other people, actors, especially if they're trying to make a living at acting, if they did it for a while, that you talk about drive and determination and
being told no.
And being okay with being turned down and being told, no, man, we got it in spades and we do not care. Actors do not care about being told no to, because we get told no to. We audition for a movie, you audition for a TV show, and most of the time you're not going to get that part. And so you get real thick skin. And so if you're looking at resumes and you're looking at people, if you see that someone has an acting background, dig into that and see how far they've gone.
That may be an area, an untapped resource to go into, because I just haven't gotten many people with acting backgrounds.
Actors are really good. Actors can sell, man. Actors are good salespeople.
Yeah, because you got the personality and you know how to. You can be a chameleon and relate to people.
And you have to sell yourself. When you're auditioning for stuff, you're selling yourself. So there's a similar drive to, with athletes and I think with actors, because I was an athlete when I was younger. I moved into the acting world, and they're very similar because it's a very competitive field as well.
Absolutely.
And you got to be super thick skinned. So
there's
a little tip for you when you're looking for resume.
Yeah, less than 1% of y'all in either arena really makes the real money, 100%. Where you can do that job full time as a career.
Yeah,
100%. That's a good point.
So there's a lot of thick skin and drive and competitiveness with people who have an acting background as well. So
good, I love that. That's a great idea.
Yeah, man. So let's talk about pressure for a minute, Brandon. So mortgage industry is, I imagine it's a pretty high stress industry, or it can be. I want to know how you personally stay grounded and how you keep your team focused when markets seem uncertain, when things are kind of, on edge. What's the strategy there for keeping everybody kind of, like you were talking about with your sales numbers kind of being level? How do you maintain that as a leader of the business?
Yeah, it's ironic because that came up. We did a family trip Sunday. We all went, my sister, all the kids, we went to church together, and they wanted our family to come to their church. And it's a big mega church here in town. And at first I'm like a little, it just seems like a big mega church. I'm not so sure. I was a little, let's go try it. And the guy was amazing, but it was interesting because we actually talked about it afterward. He said something I've said to my wife 1,000 times. He just used a different number. And I turned to her and I go, he stole my line. I was joking. But he said 99% of what we worry about never happens. And I always said 85% of the things we worry about never come to fruition. And it was like a philosophy that for years, I had to really program myself, because everything, when you get to the top of a business, all you do is fix problems all day, every day. And so it's very draining, and it's a lot on your shoulders when you really do just solve problems all day, every day. So it feels like every day it's just putting out fires. But that's why CEOs make millions of dollars at these big corporations, is because their job, it requires them to solve big problems all day, every day. And so I had to learn to be able to detach and cope with the fact that I'm always going to have a stack of things to deal with every single day. And so that pressure of that can make or break you if you let it. So, being able to understand that that's just part of your job. And if you want to be in a high, position in management or business ownership, a lot of what you do, it's not all glitz and glamour. Like it's dirty. You're fixing issues and you're dealing with stress and problems 12, 14, 16 hours a day. And I had to really look at that. And I also would remind myself after a stressful long day, it's like, one of the things I heard was the people who get the biggest paychecks solve the biggest problems. And so after a day that just wore me out, I was like, this is what you get paid to do. Don't be upset. Don't be be thankful that you have it. Because if it was easy, I could pay someone $10 an hour to come run this place. Yeah, I mean, really, so so I had to really understand that philosophy, of what you can't control, you gotta let that go. Whether you're religious or not, like some people say, give it to God, whatever it is. But if nothing else, you just got to be able to let go. I see people posting dumb stuff, negative stuff. They're in traffic. They were late for something. It's Monday. I'm like, dude, if I worried about all that little insignificant stuff, I'd go insane. When we got $1 million problems that we have to fix, like I said, that lady that's in a hotel right now who's homeless. That's what I got to worry about. And if I don't get her loan closed Friday, she's got to go rent a house for a year because they're going to cancel the contract and she loses her deposit. And I mean, I've listened to her cry on the phone. She cried on the phone with me this morning, so I do take on a lot of that, but I also, I trust that I'm going to get it done and I'm calming her down. So there is so much pressure in the mortgage industry with what we do. I used to tell my team, you have to take your job so seriously. You have the second most important job behind a doctor because you're handling people's homes. And besides their health, this may be the biggest investment that they're ever going to make. And if you screw this up like this, they're homeless. You got a lot. So you got to study, you got to learn everything, and you got to work 12, 14 hours a day if you want to be the best at what you do and be a value to your clients. So, I just always had that mindset.
I love that mindset. Because yeah, you're right. What you guys are doing is, owning a home is one of the big parts of the quote American dream is to have your own home. And yeah, I mean, if that's serious business, I don't rent. I got my house. I mean, we our house is not paid for, but we're still paying for it. But it's a big deal to get the house that we're in. So yeah, I get it, man. That's it's good to have someone. It's good to have someone like you on on the team that really cares about what's happening with those people. So all right, shift gears one more time.
Yeah.
Brandon, the guy who owns IM.Loans, big mortgage company, is wearing scrubs. Why are you in scrubs? What's going on there? You mentioned a little bit before we got on the pod that you got a new venture going on. Tell me what's going on with that.
Yeah. Like I mentioned the bodybuilding background and fitness and nutrition is probably the thing that I love more than mortgage and finance. I love working out, exercise, diet. Like I love that. So that to me is not even work. And so I had an opportunity to invest in doing a med spa here in town. And so, working as a consultant with a med spa here in town for regenerative health, anti-aging, all your hormone peptide therapies, all the things that are getting people off medications, preventing a lot of injury, surgeries, a lot of recovery. Then also we do all the aesthetics as well. So, it was all the things to make you look better, feel better, be healthier, stay younger, less aches and pains. Because I think I mentioned, I got in the mortgage business I was after a major motorcycle crash that I had coming out of college. And so as soon as I could walk again, I got in mortgages. Well, fast forward 20 years, major knee surgeries, and I live with a lot of aches and pains. And so I started really going down that rabbit hole of looking at stem cell treatments and exosome treatments and all the stuff to help heal my knees and heal my body and get out of pain. I've never been a pain med guy. I never will be.
Right.
Natural, healthy ways to heal your body. And so that was where this passion project came together. And my wife and I got involved with a doctor and an aesthetician here in town to do regen aesthetics. And so, we had our grand opening last month, and I've got basically my mortgage office is in the back, is where I'm sitting right now. And so I'll come back here a couple of hours, and in between patients, I'll be working on mortgages. And then, all now everything is digital, everything's online. So, most of my employees are spread out across the country after COVID. Everyone works from home for the most part. I've got a little satellite office in Palm Beach. I've got a little satellite office in New Orleans, and one in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and then Dallas. But they're little 1-2 person satellites that they work there. But yeah, everyone's remote now, so we don't have the big huge office like we used to, and all that overhead either.
You're doing mortgages all over the country then. You're not just limited to just Baton Rouge or Louisiana. You're
no, I will never do that again. To be really one-dimensional, I lost a fortune in 2016 when we had that big flood. Mm-hmm. Every house was destroyed overnight. I went 7 months without turning a profit. We were having a record year. Mm-hmm. The flood hit, and that's when it really dawned on me, I can't be just in one little market, because that was just a weekend rain. It wasn't even a hurricane. It was a weekend rainstorm that just poured water on us for 3 days and created one of the biggest floods in history. And overnight, we were doing everything right that year. And then this catastrophe of a flood almost bankrupted us. It was like, okay, that's when we opened up Texas and Florida, and got into some other markets. And so, so we can do, depending on the type of loan, we're licensed throughout the whole Gulf South for every type of loan. But then like investment properties and other stuff, we can do those in up to like 43 states. And then commercial, we can do in pretty much all 50.
Awesome. Very cool. Man, you got a lot going on. Brandon. Love it, dude. Are we going to get you back on? You came on, and I think our buddy Josh got you to come in and be in the show that we made. You made a cameo. We even gave you a line. You gonna come back on with us? Tell me, you got the acting bug? You want to do some more?
Dude, I freaking love acting. I love, like, my wife. I would go speak at events, and I'd be going on stage, and she's like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "I don't know. Today I said, I think I'm gonna talk about this." And she's like, "You don't have a speech?" I was like, "No." And then I'd get off, and everybody's like, "Man, that was great." I love being on stage in front of an audience. I love that. Like, that to me, again, kind of like my podcast. Like, I joke all the time. So if I can get that Joe Rogan contract from Spotify, I'd sell the mortgage business. I'd sell the mortgage business.
$90 million more than $90 million Spotify
contract. If they give me $1 million a year to do podcasting or an acting gig, believe me, it's way more fun and way less stress sometimes. So you guys, if there's a bigger speaking role or some more sales roles, that was so much fun. I was plugging Mondo after a couple of cocktails the other night. I was like, yeah, so let me know if there's some bigger roles in segment episode 2 or 3.
We'll write some good stuff in for you, man. It was fun. That was a fun day shooting that scene with Josh and the conference room. You guys all really kind of got into it, which was a lot of fun. It made it easier on us that had the lines. So you guys all crushed that day, and we'll be putting the show out here soon. You've seen it, so I'm glad you got to see it.
Oh,
I'm glad you get to have a conversation with me where you realize, oh, this guy doesn't really sound like he sounds like on the show. So
that's what shows like your acting you do, because you were so funny with that voice.
I appreciate it. That role. Yeah, I've done that voice for years with Armando, and he was like, "That's what I want you to do, that voice that you do when we do the show." And I was like, "All right, fine, that's what we'll do." So it was a lot of fun to do.
That was priceless.
Yeah. So all right, Brandon. I don't want to keep any longer. I appreciate you giving me the time that you give me. Let people know out there how they can get in touch with you, how they can get in touch with the business.
Yeah, well, like you mentioned at the beginning, IM.Loans is the website. There's a click here to apply, and then my phone number is listed on the website. I tell everybody, every one of my clients has my cell number. It's 225-772-5843. Always the best way to reach me. Text me, call me. I'm a fanatic about answering my phone or responding immediately to a fault. I get fussed at a lot by my wife about texting and driving. But I am really, truly to a fault available to my clients 7 days a week. And that's something I preach again to my salespeople. I don't care. I've been doing this 20 plus years. And I just believe that, again, our industry, because of what we do, it's so important that you're available because, real estate happens a lot on the weekends, or there might be an issue. Someone has a question at 6, 7 o'clock at night. I want to be available because if you're stressing out and your wife is asking you something and you don't know the answer, I don't want you guys having to wait till the next day. Shoot me a text, ask me. So I'm, like I said, I'm always there for my clients. And the same thing, like with our med spa business, I'm fielding most of the calls, the appointment setting, and I'm more like my title there is a regenerative wellness consultant. So, like the hormone counseling and talking about the regenerative therapies and putting together, nutrition with we have a functional nutritionist as well. So talking through wellness plans and all that, like I'm kind of the front man on the wellness side of it too. And then I set those appointments up with all my notes, and then the doctor will actually do the full diagnosis. And then if there's any prescriptions or anything that need to be given, he takes care of that.
Nice, man. Awesome. I appreciate you. You give me some time today, Brandon. This is a great conversation. We'll get you back on and kind of see what you got going on. And if you need guests for your pod, you can hit me up. You can hit Armando. We'd be happy to come on and guest on.
Yeah, man, for sure. We'll definitely get you guys on, man. You guys are a blast. I love you guys.
Yeah, man, appreciate it. And if you're watching the live stream out there right now, we appreciate you guys tuning in to the live stream. If you're watching the recorded version on YouTube or listening on Spotify or Apple or wherever you get your podcasts, we appreciate you guys too. Really appreciate if you leave a thumbs and the likes and the stars and all that good shit. It really helps to get the word out about the show and get the word out about people like Brandon here who are really helping people out. So please make sure you do that and subscribe. We got more episodes coming later this week. I think we got several episodes coming later this week, and hopefully those guests will bring as much good stuff to the table as Brandon has here. So that's it for the show this afternoon. Brandon, thank you again, man. Appreciate it. We'll see you guys next time on Partnership for Profit.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Partnerships for Profit. We hope you've gained valuable insights on how to form profitable partnerships and take your business to the next level. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Got a partnership story to share or someone you'd like to see featured on the show? Reach out to us. Until next time, keep building those partnerships for profit.